Welcome to episode 40 of the Time Talks podcast, part of the Channel Zero Network. This episode, I'm joined by another Channel Zero Network member, my wonderful friend, Carla Bergman. Carla is co-author of Joyful Militancy with Nick Montgomery. Carla edited the book Radiant Voices and put together the Emma Talk series and collaborated on the work Pandemic Solidarity. Along with being an author, Carla is a filmographer. Check out Joyful Threads Productions. On top of that, check out the podcast Carla collaborates on. There's the Silver Threads podcast and the Grounded Futures podcast. These links are in the show notes. For this episode, we had a conversation and put together a playlist on the topic of melancholy joy, sharing some of our stories and the ways we use music to navigate life and living. Thank you to Awareness for the music, and here's a brief jingle from a fellow Channel Zero Network member.
The Final Straw is a weekly anarchist radio show. It's fucking awesome, and you're never going to hear me say fucking awesome on our show because we're FCC regulated.
There's a black part of my heart that just flutters when you talk like that.
Talk, then more yelling.
It's a weird sort of like nice thing in a way, but also can get kind of crushing at times.
thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org.
I just wanted to begin in saying that you're a wonderful writer, poet, curator, conductor, filmographer, author, revolutionary, joyarchist, artist, kinetic thinker, and so much more. And I just wanted to thank you for doing this Melancholy Joy Mixtape. I was wondering if you could kind of open with what you kind of frame what melancholy joy is, because when you first mentioned it to me, just the phrase put together a lot of things a way that I liked sad music and how sad music brought me relief, and how I've been attracted to minor notes and all that, and just the vibe. So it really meant a lot to me when you mentioned it to me.
That's really nice. Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. And I would repeat all that back to you, that you are too, kinetic thinker and joyarchist and all that. Thank you. It means a lot. I'm a bit nerve-sighted, as the My Little Pony say. So just give me a second. Yeah, if it's okay, if I can give a little bit of a historical story around it, because it, like everything with me, it always has this like aha moment. So similar, I've always been attracted to sad music, and it was actually, we have a radio station in Canada that's, I guess, a public radio called CBC, and they have really good shows on it. And there was an episode on this idea of melancholy music. And so I was like, what's that? And of course, they talked about Joni Mitchell a lot, a Canadian sweetheart. And I was like, yeah, that's real. And they had said, the person, I can't even remember who was on, probably a musician in Canada, but they said, melancholy just means a thoughtful sadness. And I was like, oh, that's what I am. I'm like, thoughtfully sad. But as time went on, I went through just stuff that was happening in the global, like collective grief. 9/11 happened, some other stuff, some personal stuff. I really noticed that through all my like sad periods of time, I always had a belly full of joy. It's the best way to describe it. Joy is just really, really big in me. So I thought about a decade later, I think I tried to create a handle on Twitter, Melancholy Joy, but I had it in a few online forums. And a part of it was because I had a bit of a judgment that if you weren't melancholic, you weren't paying attention to the world, but that you could still have a thriving life. So it had a kind of a political resonance to it. Like it went beyond music. The story moves into militant joy, because militant to me has more power, I guess, or more collective power. It's more active than melancholy. But the pandemic hit, and melancholy really resurfaced in my life. Collectively, I could feel that collective grief. And I was just really attracted again to listen to melancholy joy music, and really listening to your album that you put out this year reignited that again in me. And I think that's why I sent it to you, because I was like, oh, this is melancholy joy music, your newest one that you put out.
Thank you so much. That's so kind. And I also see the phrase you use of melancholic hope, and that's a really powerful word too. And I think that's kind of what you find in the Melancholy Joy is this hope of kind of listening to sad music or music that helps you reflect and re-energize yourself again. And there's a hope in Melancholy of just even being able to verbalize or feel that you're melancholic is the hope, because you're reflecting and saying, like, I'm sad, I have sadness and anger, and I'm able to work with those now and kind of water those seeds to work through problems. And that, I think that's one thing that music does so well.
Yeah, I love that. Nick Montgomery, who co-wrote Joy for Militancy, has started talking about Empire and Joy in our book, using music as an example, and that Empire has this really loud music that's really loud and drowns everything else out. And when you asked me to do this show, I was like, oh, I wonder how Melancholy Joy music fits into disrupting that, because one of the things that I added to the conversation was that the problem is listening. It's not so much that it's louder. I think that all the other music or other sounds or the other ways of talking with each other is there, it's present. And there's something about that melancholic hope, like you say, that it's there. Like the possibilities are there, the seeds are there, and they just need us to water them, as you so graciously said to me once that I loved. Yeah, so yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and with what you say of how it's there, that's really, I feel the explanation, and it's so hard to explain it with Melancholy Joy in those terms. Like, it's something that's there, it's something you can feel, and it's like a vibe. In Joyful Militancy, I really liked the quote from Glenn Coulthard when you all had mentioned that he put his finger on something of sadness and anger and how they often stem from love. And just a little bit of this quote is, I think that for the somber, melancholic militant, I get it, I understand it, how could you not be? And this is my point, the only way you respond to the world like that is because of some base sort of individual and collective self-respect, some love for oneself and others, or the land that you are being violated in a profound way. This produces melancholy, anger, whatever. They're not separable. And I really thought that whole quote is just powerful. And if anyone has a book, it's on page 175. So there's no citation violations there.
Nope. You can also get the book for free online.
Yeah, I really just thought that quote he added more to this conversation too.
Thanks for finding it. We need to put his whole interview up. It's so incredible.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's really good, because we interviewed him obviously because he talks about resentment and anger so much, and it was like affirmative theory. It includes anger and rage. It's not negation, right? Like negation is something else. And so I thank you for bringing him in, because I think that's a really important distinction about where melancholy fits into the conversation right now. I worked really hard to not be a melancholic person, so it's like, dang, it's back again.
Well, yeah, I hope it's like a productive Melancholy Joy. I mean, that's what I wanted. That's what I really felt with this mixtape. Yeah. And that it brings up deeper discussions on art and feelings and just other reactions that I feel are productive in thinking deeper about society. And a lot of these things are produced from such a disgusting, messed up society, at least with my picks, that help me find ways to navigate through these parts of society. Yeah. So before we start, I was just going to give a little intro on why I picked these, kind of just a whole foundation of how I picked them. And I just wanted to say that I framed how I picked my choices with assuming that there's a lot of nuances, and I'm sure that's why you picked yours as well, that they have nuances, that they're not just the songs, but they relate to life, your life and timeline. And I picked these songs for a few reasons. For one, they may sound like they're more melancholy songs, but they bring joy and solace. They are often songs I go to when I feel no more hope or little hope. Songs I go to recharge, to recalibrate, to keep reminding myself that I'm not going to feel this way forever. And along with these choices, when I'm stressed, I often find I get attached to a song and it becomes my crutch. I don't know if you're that way. They become my friend when I'm lonely and alienated, usually from work and ironically self-imposed isolation that I often do unknowingly and then realize. These were also songs that were some of my only friends during tough times that helped me build me back up again. Hopefully they can be tools for others and spark other discussions and other playlists like this.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, definitely some of that for me, the friend part for sure, the helping me move through. Like, I think melancholy is something that is imposed on us from the conditions of the world we're living in. And I think joy maybe is something that's within us that we can, Ursula Le Guin in The Dispossessed talks about it as something that you can't control at all. It just will come in and do its thing and leave. I just really love that distinction. It was the seed for me thinking about joy differently. So yeah, when I think with my playlists, there's a couple things. I physically get affected when I'm sad. So my body I get sick. I can't move. So for me, music has to have an element that makes me move. And I think that's how joy moves, is when I move, it moves with me, or it moves first. I don't know what, what comes first, but the music definitely, because thinking about like part of whether it's collective or individually, like we try to find some harmony. And if you think about that in terms of music, right? Like what is that about? Like what are we looking for in ourselves when we're not doing well, when we're depleted and stagnated and sad? Yeah. So I think that played like a role. I also thought about my personal journey in terms of finding freedom within myself from stagnant, what do you call it? First family or family of origin stuff that I needed to get away from. Some of those songs are about that and becoming a parent. I have like definitely a theme of don't tell me what to do and I don't want to grow up. I think all of that kind of fits in. And can I bring up Mushishi?
Yeah.
Because it's connected. And I have a question for you before we maybe share our playlist. But I was rewatching Mushishi. Maybe you can explain what Mushishi is after if people need to. But just Google it. It's an animation. It's beautiful. It's Zen Buddhist healer guy. Ginkgo. Quickly. But one of the episodes was about, I think it's like the second or third one of the first season. I'm not going to go into details of it because it's just a small part of the story. But Mushi come in. Mushi are these things that are not human or not fauna or flora. They're in between. And it comes into, when there's no sound around, it burrows into humans' ears and eats their sound. I don't know if you remember that one, but so it made me think about like, what is my sound? Like because I think this is connected to what music I'm drawn to. Because maybe that counterpoint or where's the harmony from my sound to the sound from music. And in the show, the woman who talks about it, her sound is lava, which is a really intense sound to have to live with. Holy. I asked my friend in Japan if it's a Japanese thing, and she said it's not, but maybe regionally. And I tried to find it, but there's probably not an English translation for it. But it feels pretty human. Like, I think it's pretty pan-human, probably, that we can think about this. So I was thinking about like, my sound feels like if I feel into it, it's like the wind. It's collaborative. It's like the wind off of like a soft ocean, but it has to go up into the trees too. Like it's like this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So when I thought about all the music I picked, I could feel it in it. So that was cool. So I'm curious if you've ever thought of that.
That's an awesome question. I love that.
You have a sound.
I love the wind that you're talking about. The wind, I like wind in music sometimes. I hear that a lot in like Kate Bush's music. She creates these atmospheres, and I know a lot of her songs are about the mountain too, going top of the mountain. I would say a sound that I really resonate with is something I resonate most with is rain. So in a lot of my lyrics, I'll use different words for rain, like the typewriter rain, tapped on the roof, or the Fred Astaire rain, or something like. I'm always trying to get back to rain, and I find it comforting. And I live in a desert in so-called Denver, so we don't get a lot of rain. And I like water too, the sounds of water. I find that calming. And Mushi really has, its soundtrack is very calming to the anime. And I think is the episode you're talking about when the Mushi is in the pillow and going into people's. And like the mushi turns into almost like kanjis and it's dancing and it's going into people's ears or something. That one is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And one thing I really like about Ginkgo is he kind of does this mutual aid where he's going around town to town, just helping people and educating. and he's very introverted. He's not the most outwardly kindest person, but Ginkgo has so much love in him, and he just has a different way of his love language speaking.
Yeah, everyone should watch Mushishi or read the manga because they're equally as good if you need books.
So good. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, we could do a whole show on Ginkgo.
That would be great.
Because just real quick, the thing I always tell people why they should watch it is because there's no judgment on the mushi or on the person who has it. The only judgment really is the people who don't help the person who's not well. That's the only time I see Ginkgo get upset with somebody, is when they've done the wrong thing in terms of helping somebody, like they've judged them or something. And I mean, if we just all could embody a bit of that, we'd have a better world, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that interpretation.
Also, I need to say, because any of my friends who are listening and family, I need to respond and say that rain is like my favorite thing in the world. I did a whole project called Rain. It stood for Radical Art in Nature. And
I love that.
we had rain is, and I live in a rainforest, so I get a lot of rain. Yeah, so much of my son's music, Zach's music, has rain in it. I'm with you on that one.
That doesn't surprise me. We have so many commonalities.
I know.
So I'm going to start with Bob's by Talk to the Birds by Bob's Your Uncle.
Okay, so this came out in 1985. I was living in so-called Victoria, which is like the capital of British Columbia. And I was 18, just going on 19, and I hung out at a punk bar with all the punk bands played there that came through. No Means No, Dago Abortions, a lot of local people, but also Black Flag came through and so on and so forth. And when Bob's Your Uncle came through, it was just so exciting. First of all, a woman front person was really quite rare. A woman of color was even rarer in punk. And they talk about joy, but it was also like about feeling alienated as young people and poor people. And so it had a melancholic energy to it. And I bought their tape, and I had a little yellow Walkman, and I played it so much that it died. And she lives in she's went on, Sukin Lee has gone on to be, she was like a VJ for Much Music, which is the Canadian version of MTV, which was really big back then. She was in Short Bus, the movie. Now she's on CBC and does other stuff. But yeah. Plus, I talk to birds. I still do. I still talk to the birds.
I love that song. Boy, when I heard this song, it really made me think just like the rebelliousness of school at first. Kind of imagine a teacher, and then like ditching class, and then getting your real class from talking to some birds, or your real education from leaving school and going into nature.
Yeah.
I also thought of it just as an overarching ideology as well.
Oh yeah, say more.
Of just like they tell you to do this, they say do this, but usually everything that they tell you to do in ideology or hegemony is some form of coercion to get you to start renting somewhere, because you need to have all of these things, but you have to sell your time and your body for money. Mm-hmm. And people will tell you, well, if you don't have enough money, ideology and capitalism says, well, get 2 jobs, and they're always telling you something that's going to lead to more coercion instead of any form of liberation.
Yeah, they're really fun. People should look them up. They have this one song, If I Knew You Were, it's like Bake a Cake or something. It's probably a cover. If I Knew You Were Coming, I Would Have Baked a Cake. You know that song?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do it really well.
Anything else you want to add on that song?
No, I think like the big thing was that it was just really great to encounter them during a time when punk was really important to me. But alongside that, in a city that racism is really, really it was just everywhere. Victoria is very British. Like you can always tell the difference between the skinheads and the punks. So I don't know. They were just really great.
That's awesome. Thank you for showing me her music. Okay, so this song is by Organized Konfusion, who is Prince Poe and Pharoah Monch. And they're an older group, and Pharoah Monch is turned to be one of my favorite lyricists when I got older. And Prince Poe is amazing. And this song is probably one of my biggest go-tos when just feeling down or depressed or existential. Yeah, the song is just really deep, and it talks about these two fetuses inside of their mother, and they're kind of just rapping about life.
I love that one. Really, really speaks to that power of the joy. You know, despite everything, be curious and dream, and I love it. It also makes me want to move, which is like my criteria for melancholy joy music.
This is a great beat.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And one of the lines that when I was re-listening to this song is by Prince Poetry. He says, overshadowed in darkness where curiosity is my light. And I love that bar so much, and it reminded me of our conversation. But like a deeper meaning to this song is, I don't know, it just makes me think about just mortality a lot. And when my mom was pregnant with me, she smoked the whole time. So I resonated with what Pharoah Monch was talking about. And he was born with asthma, actually. And I think he struggles with that during shows, but amazing performer. And then another thing is when my mom, I think, was about 8-9 months pregnant, she fell down the stairs and she landed on her stomach, and she was bleeding profusely, and she was crying, she was freaking out. She went to the hospital, and the doctor told her that her baby was dead, which was me, and that she needed to have it removed. And she was just in shock. So she left the hospital and was like, "Oh, I'll deal with this tomorrow." And then when she went back to her own doctor tomorrow, they were like, "No, your baby's alive, has a heartbeat." So it must have been knocked out or something. I don't know.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Holy
crazy story.
So my mom was told that I was dead too, and wasn't gonna live. And
wow. And
I know. Yeah. She didn't have an accident. I was like, it was a situation during labor.
Wow.
And they had to make a decision to save her or me, and they chose her because obviously she had 4 other children.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. That's so powerful.
Same. Holy crow. Guess we really needed to be here.
Yeah.
Or wanted to be here.
All right. So I'm going to play the next song, which is Don't Give Up by Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush.
I mean, first of all, that hug in the video. I mean, just the beauty of the like friendship that they have for each other and the intimacy that's just so pure. I tried to post it early on in the pandemic because it was like, who else needs to see this all the time, this hug? But it kept getting taken down because I didn't have rights to it. But yeah, it's kind of like a ethos that's run through my life. I even had a campaign during the Thistle days that I went around to all the schools, me and my friend. I probably shouldn't say that. Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. We had stickers that said, don't give up, quit. Because for me, it's like part of not giving up is not giving up on yourself. And so that means you sometimes got to quit a whole pile of things, especially with young people. I like to frame it that way. And yeah, this song just... when I'm at my like lowest point, I always go to it. I mean, Gabriel was just so important when I was a teen, and Kate Bush especially later on. Also, other people who have performed it with it, I loved it too, like Paula Cole, who was his backup singer for years, and then went on to her own career. Yeah, just right. It's just it's a love story about friendship. I think a lot of people think it's about a romantic relationship, but I mean, she even talks about like we're your friends. We have you. We got you. You know, somebody on the brink, but they remember they have friends. It's so good.
Yeah, I love this song, and I really hadn't really heard it much until you had mentioned it to me. And I've been listening to it all week. And yeah, you're right. It's like a love story about friends. So cool. And people need to hear those words, don't give up, but they also need to hear you worry too much. Just move on with it. So I love those messages.
Yeah, and on a personal trajectory, like that last part, when Gabriel goes into the big reveal of walking across the bridge, like that. I listened to that probably on repeat when I was making the decision to leave my family behind, and I would put it on my headphones and walk over these bridges and like act it out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, I just had like finding belonging as and they talk about that in the song. It's just so powerful. And what gets me is that it's still powerful, you know, after all these years, because it's speaking to our alienation from each other. And
yeah, that's how you know it's so real. I think another thing really cool about Kate Bush and is that she incorporates her family a lot in her music. I know her son was the one who encouraged her to go back into performing live again. Wow. And then she has him on her last live album. He's singing like 3 different songs with her. And I didn't know he was the one who made her start doing live shows again. And his voice is awesome too.
Thanks for sharing that. I had no idea about that. And of course, as you know, I collaborate with my kids. So that my oldest had everything to do with helping me pick out this list. So.
Exactly. It made me think about that. And
yeah, that's really nice. And he's actually a huge Kate Bush fan, like bigger than me. So that's really nice. I wonder if he knows. He probably does. Soul actually texted me the other day and said, it must be amazing to collaborate with your kid. Like, holy shit.
This song is by Andre 3000 from Outkast, and he's taken a big hiatus aside from doing features and stuff. He's been just learning to play the clarinet and diving into jazz more, but he came back and did this song, I believe, with James Blake, who did the piano. And the song is another song that I go to, and it's a heartbreaking song called Me&My, to bury your parents.
I had never heard that song until I saw your list, and yeah, it's really sad. But also it has this thread of like I can feel delight in it and joy. It made not me think about my parents, but it made me think about my oldest brother who died, who was like there's that like the chorus of my and my, and he doesn't say anything else. Like, oh yeah, that yeah.
And when you mention that, I noticed today that he goes me and my mother at the end. He goes me and my mother, me and my father, me and my, me and then me as he ends it. And I had never noticed that breakdown until today. And it was like, give me goosebumps. And it's such a heartbreaking song, but yeah, you're right. It has this joy in it. It has this nostalgic joy of, even though, you know, he had to bury his parents, he has these memories and he has the love with them. And as we talked about, of time not being linear so much, that's the beauty of nostalgia and the beauty of music that can conjure those time frames.
You have an album called Nostalgia. Did you come up with that? Or
like at the time I thought I did, but I don't know if I really did, because I think there's even a producer or a rapper that goes by the name Nostalgia. Right.
Well, it's the first time I heard it. And what I liked about it, and I think there's an eagle right over my head.
Wow.
Like 5 inches.
Whoa.
We talk about this a lot on the Silver Threads podcast, because I'm really interested in like grabbing stuff from the past and the future, but making sure we weave it into right now in the present. And nostalgia just captures that in a way that I didn't have a word for it. I was just like, just grab the thread from there and there and make a thing. And that's what I hear in this song. It's really great.
Yeah, that was my exact thought with the album. I was like I'm such a loser. I'm always like with nostalgia. I'm always going towards it. It's like, but you have to love the present too. And I was like, what if the present could feel like nostalgia if you were making those memories and those feelings and feeling them as nostalgia feels in the present. I feel there's a danger of just going to nostalgia all the time.
Totally. Yeah.
At least for me.
Same. That's where depression lingers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Okay. We won't also play this song piano. Well, first of all, Tracy Chapman is like where I really learned my politics. I grew up around a lot of punk music and stuff, but I have a joke where I'm like, there's Sex Pistol anarchism and then there's anarchism, right? Or like anti-authoritarianism or whatever. Anyways, Tracy is like, her music just educated me in a way that the punk didn't. She's just incredible. I saw her live. It was like the best thing ever outside. And this song, as someone who grew up pretty poor in a dysfunctional home, and when I met my partner, like it's just our song, just everything about it. And, it is our trajectory. Like if he could just like give me the foundation, I will take us places kind of thing. And every time, even after we've been together almost 30 years and we still like hear it and go, it feels like yesterday that we had to take this leap of faith together and run away or run towards joy in our life. And it's just, I think it's like a pinnacle melancholy joy song because it's a lot of loss wrapped up in it, but it's also about freedom and liberation and finding your way.
I love that song. The way that she goes from narration to heart so effortlessly is just amazing. I love the lyrics so much. And I was wondering when you said that along with punk, because I know you have a history in the punk scene, the different branches that Tracy Chapman gave you, maybe with like a political vocabulary or outlook.
Right. I mean, I guess it was just, to borrow the phrase intersectionality. I mean, it also had especially that album, like it had a lot about forgiveness on it and love and finding the path towards liberation versus just always in fighting against or negation. And that was something I really needed. Early on when my brother was into punk, I used to say, I don't know how you can listen to this. It's just all negative. And like, no wonder you're depressed all the time. Like, I listened to like the Police instead. That time, this is like 77, 78. So finding her, like she had that kind of like, things are bad. Called things what they were. She was, obviously pointing out the horrors of the world, but within this framework and a container of like love and kindness and forgiveness. That was really beautiful. Like the other song on the album, Chris, my partner, when I met him, he had played on the guitar. Had 3 of the songs he played and sang.
No way, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was like part of.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. What about you?
When I first heard this song, it really brought out a lot of these stories that you don't often hear about of really just like class issues, and of course, race and white supremacy tied into these. But when you hear the one that really resonates with me is the man who was drinking because his body he felt had no more use, but he was much too young for how his body looked. And it's so powerful, just that phrasing of the way that she took it. And it really just made me think of when I worked in the union. I worked in the stagehand union for a while, right before COVID or year before COVID. And I was on the carpet duty, which was a horrible thing. So I would lay miles of carpet a day in the convention centers for Comic Cons and stuff. And these guys that I worked with that had been there for years, they could only be comfortable when they were laying carpet. When they were trying to walk out to the light rail station, it brought them horrible pain to walk, and they had their legs had so much arthritis and stuff. And these guys weren't even that old. That lyric really resonated with me when I heard this again. Yeah.
The working class stuff is a big part of why I think that song works for us too. Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add on this?
Just that it had the theme of finding belonging again, which I was like, oh, there's that. That's probably what's underneath all of my play songs.
I love the story behind this song too that you shared. So I'm going to play, the next song is Miserablism by the Pet Shop Boys. The way I got into this song was actually when I started working from home during COVID. I've been laid off from my other job, and I started at that call center job that I was talking about. And this was like a hellacious job, and in between calls, which was usually only about 20 seconds, I would throw on. I was like, I'm gonna try to get through all these discographies of people I like, and I was going through Pet Shop Boys, and I had never heard this song. It was some B-side, and I was like, this song is amazing. It's because I've always thought that the whole Disney narrative has messed up so many people of this capitalist thing of work hard. There's someone for everyone. You'll find love. All these things. They create a gold-plated lust that is a form of what they call love, and dust it with capitalism or something like that. And when he's talking about just that life will be disappointing and all these things and not having expectations, it's just so well said and comforting, I found, especially while working at a call center.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story and re-listening to it. I hadn't listened to it in years, but there was a line in it. I hope it's in it. Oh my gosh. It made me think, I wonder if this was some seeds around the melancholy thing of being like wearing it as a badge of honor, because there's that line where just for the sake of it, make sure you're always frowning. It shows the world you've got substance and depth. Right. Like I was quite judgy if people were not melancholy. I was like, you can't be you're just not paying attention to how many people are suffering.
Yeah, that's the third verse. That was one of my, yeah, it's one of my favorite lines because it's funny for one, but then it's kind of deep too. And it's like there's a lot of people who and I know there's so much to different neurodivergence of sometimes people who smile the most are actually very depressed. I just like how he plays with that. He plays with this whole thing of you have to show if you see someone frowning, they understand this philosophy of miserablism. There's no happy endings, just a message to depress, and it's so funny and relatable at the same time.
And it has a beat that makes you move, so the joy can move.
Yeah, they always have the great dancey beats. Okay, so now we're going to Nat King Cole song Nature Boy.
So I didn't have this song on my first playlist. I think the first one I sent to you didn't have this. I do have it on the large original one. But I was on a walk with Zach, and he reminded me that I sing the song all the time and not doing well. And also, he was like, love was like the thing, like you centering everything in love is what actually got you healthy. It's not about the negative and fighting back and don't tell me what to do and don't want to do this and I don't want it. It was all about actually more affirmative. And really big fan of Moulin Rouge. Seen it more than I want to admit, and including seeing it in San Francisco at the Castro with everyone's with a sing-along. So the song is just incredible, and because there is the melancholic energy throughout it, but the message is so short and so quick, but it's everything.
I think there's just such good advice, this song, and I wish I would have heard this when I was young. The message is so powerful. No, you were speaking of the Moulin Rouge.
Actually been there. I haven't been inside, but I've seen it outside of Paris, in Paris. That's really good to know. Have you not seen the movie?
Not in a long time. I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's we have a joke in our family that, and it's actually Christian, that it's actually the character, not Ewan McGregor, but the joke is if Ewan McGregor gave me a call tomorrow that I'd dump the whole family. But it's really that character. Oh man, it's heartache, and this is so beautiful.
I love it. And is this the most common song that you actually verbalize when you're stressed out? I love that. It's one
of those things I didn't even know I did it. And your kid reflects, people you live with reflect back to you. Mm-hmm. You do this thing.
I love that your kid collaborated and got this song on here, and then got this song into my heart and my mind. Okay, so I'm gonna now play Sade, When Am I Going to Make a Living? Aside from this just being an amazing song, I'm a big Sade fan. When I was in high school, I stopped playing basketball and for the school, and I broke my knee and had surgery, and then to play basketball. So I started working at the hospital, and I was working at Rose Medical Hospital in Denver, and they had this free jukebox in the cafeteria, and this was one of the albums that was on there. And there was this woman who I worked with in the cafeteria and in the kitchen, and she showed me this song. And she was kind of like my real teacher. She was teaching me through Sade. She was saying, she would always tell me the line that they'll waste your body and soul if you allow them. And she was an older Black woman from the South. And she was like a mentor to me. She was like, you need to do good in school. Would talk to me about getting out of there, getting out of the kitchen if I could. So I was a pot washer probably there till I was 19. So probably about 5 years. And the jukebox had all kinds of other annoying albums. And this was the one that was great. I remember they had Who Let the Dogs Out by the Bahama Men, and it was a single. And this one cook, he'd put in the code like 6 times to drive people crazy. And then we'd have to unplug the jukebox. But I really just learned a lot from this song. This song just has such a powerful message.
Oh, I love that story. Holy moly. It's got like layers. Yeah, she's amazing. Big on the playlist of me choosing joy over sorrow. Really at that time in 2001, I listened to her a lot. This song is really important for me too because I was in the restaurant business for years. It's like generational. Like my grandmother owned restaurants, and I was really good at it. And I was in Toronto, and I was the owner wanted me to open a restaurant with him in Vancouver and meet partners. And I was listening, not to the song, but she was just some part of my playlist and other people, and just like, I'm gonna not be working class anymore. And which is a joke because you can't actually just say you're not going to do it anymore. But I decided that I had a retirement party, and I've never turned back. I've never worked in a restaurant since I was 35. I think it's just really important message in there about, this is just an important nuance because people like capitalists, what's that bullshit line of like, do what you love, the money will follow bullshit. But there's the thing with like working class folks that we do to ourselves where we don't believe in ourselves. And I love that in this line, and that line in this song. I think, yeah, there's just a nuance in it that it's not about playing the capitalist game, but it's about believing in yourself so that you can find thriving. Yeah. Thanks for picking it. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for adding that. We're doing the Holly Cole version. So this next song is I Don't Want to Grow Up. It's hypnotic. It's so good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so this song has played a factor since I was a teenager because the Ramones did it first. Much more upbeat, funnier version. Really, I think the perfect version for a teen to listen to. Really resonated. I have fought so-called adultism all my life in terms of the rigidity that I seen, the suffering and whatever that meant. And then fast forward a bunch of years, just after I gave birth to Zach, my oldest, in 94, I think that's around when she came out with this album. She covered a bunch of Tom Waits songs, which is funny because Tom Waits' version is actually the one that resonates the most with me now because it feels so playful and he's older, and I don't know, I just relate to him more, I think. But this was really, I was really stuck with what does it mean to not want to grow up in this way, but be a parent. And it just, yeah, I listened to it often and with, my baby on my chest, and thinking about it. Didn't give in, didn't grow up in that way.
I love those threads that you put through it. Yeah, I do. I think the Ramones is, the most playful, and then Tom Waits is kind of the middle. Which Tom Waits is so good at, of being melancholy and playful and funny at the same time. And then Holly Cole just really brings out, takes away the sarcasm, and you really just feel the rawness of the lyrics, which is why I love this version.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so powerful, but still resilient at the same time.
Totally. Yeah. And Tom Waits, exactly. And I originally picked his version because it is Melancholy Joy, but the story is better.
Oh yeah, thank you for sewing it all together. We messed around and made a really good playlist.
Mute. Yes. Really fun. It was Melancholy Joy.
So I'm gonna play the track Legends by Juice WRLD, who recently passed away. Rest in peace to Juice WRLD.
Ooh, I want to hear why?
Yeah, this you can hear Juice WRLD's his heart and his music and his soul, and just the vulnerability of most of Juice WRLD's music is so powerful, and his voice, the beats that he uses too. And I really just resonate to the song because I don't know if it goes back to when my mom was smoking when I was pregnant, but my lungs, they collapsed randomly. And they actually collapsed 4 times, one right when I turned 18, just back to back. And then I had to have surgeries, and the top lobes of my lungs had to be removed. And I was going in and out of the hospital for probably about a year or two. So I was always on Dilaudid in the hospital, just messed up my head so bad. And then they would give me like Percocets and all this. And, you know, I was essentially like battling with addiction of pain pills just because I was depressed, but I didn't think I was. I think that was the scariest thing. It just was like, oh yeah, I'll take one because I have all these and I have a little bit of pain. And then it was turning into, you know, a hole to dig down that was a dangerous hole. And I really just relate to what Juice WRLD's talking about in this, on top of this, and the things that he struggled with. I know there was another artist that was lost who had a similar vulnerability to their lyrics, was Lil Peep. A couple years ago too, was just had this amazing way of writing too. And the lyrics that really resonate with me in this song is that I usually have an answer to the question, but this time I'm going to be quiet. Ain't nothing like the feeling of uncertainty, the eeriness of silence, and so powerful. When I work with a lot of youth in high schools, I know a lot of them relate to Juice WRLD too, because they're going in school at this time that's worried about school shootings, worried about climate change. So many existential things that are already heavy on top of just being in high school, those feelings at the time. So there's just a lot of intersections and things that collide with this song and why I relate to it.
Thanks for sharing about your story and being vulnerable. I'm so sorry. That's a lot to contend with. Glad you have.
Thank you.
Music really helps, right?
Yeah.
I love this song too. I actually had the same quote pulled out, so I won't say it, but not surprisingly. I had shared the list with Zach today, and he was blown away that the song was on it, and he was like, "Oh, it's just too sad. There's a little Peep, and they're all dead." Yeah. But yeah, the like love for each other though that comes through in the song, like about, you know, like the music will live on. It's one of those things that writers die too. I'm so grateful that I still have their words to carry out generations, not just me. I really like that in it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like one beautiful thing about art is that it literally saves lives. And I know that this song saves lives every day. And that's another thing of just beautiful art.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next track is by Burial, and the song is Untrue. So good.
Yeah. There's like many stories with this album. I think probably why I chose it is in 2017 I got really sick and was in bed for about 8 months. I love to dance. It's how I move through being sad, and I couldn't dance. So kind of came up with this plan that if I put a record on and laid on the floor, like on the hardwood floor, I would feel the vibrations of the music, and my body would get my vagus nerve activated and I would move. And Zach put on this, and it just became like this healing theme song, especially Untrue. And then during the pandemic, it just, you know, that feeling of being in quarantine and stuff and being stuck at home, like had a similar feeling, even though I could physically dance. So, I just listened to it every day. And we have all of Burial stuff. But this is the one that I go to. And then I think I shared this with you, that Mark Fisher writes about a story about him writing this particular song with his mom and him being really sad. I think his dog just died or something. And he wrote something and his mom didn't like it and told him to like just go make some tea and fuck everybody and do his work, find his passion or whatever. I can't remember the exact quote. It's really good. And that just made me love it even more, because he immediately went and wrote this song, Untrue, and she loved it. It was beautiful.
And then it turned to be his breakout hit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this story so much. I had never known it till you had told me. It's so cool. So when you started using the song kind of as a ritual for healing, did you notice a big difference right away?
Yes, that again. Sorry, the wind.
Oh, it's fine. This episode is featuring the wind.
Yes,
So,
which is our sound.
Yeah. It's a form of music. Yeah, when I first heard Burial, it was on a Tom York remix, and I just love the haunting synths, but it's still dancey. It's some of my favorite type of music, a reason why I love new wave so much, and kind of some EDM and stuff like that. I love that this pick is on the playlist. So next we're going to a Channel Zero Network friend, Tim, who is Soul, and the song is called Last Earth. So for one, Soul is one of my favorite lyricists, one of my favorite writers. I don't know how many albums Soul has. It's in the 20s. It may be in the 30s. A prolific writer. And the reason I like this song is it has that melancholy joy to it. It's a lot of Soul's music does, but this is more of a dancey beat. It has William Ryan Fritch from a Soul in the Skywriter band singing with him. Just the beginning bar is so cool. I might be dead, but no flies on me. And he lived in Denver for a while, and we would often go to protests together. And I remember one day we were at one of these protests and he disappeared, and he was arrested kind of just for stepping off the curb for a second, the average blocking traffic or something. And the line "all up in the sill talking FTP" is just so funny to me, but so Soul at the same time, and so true. And the way that he gets into other topics too, and he says that's a bad trip, like when whites cross the sea, talking about colonialism, questioning dogma, which is something he does so well with the way that he intervenes with anarchy and anarchism. And the chorus too, the planet Earth, you don't belong to anyone, we will undo the feudal age. And then he always gets into little sci-fi tangents as well, like talking about the simulation theory, or are we in a projection? And then the playfulness of Soul as well, that sometimes that he dreams he's flying through space. Just all these images of liberation while talking about desecration at the same time, which is, I find, inspiring and comforting and reflective.
Yeah, thanks for putting the song on. I hadn't heard it. I already adore Tim and Soul, so I had pulled out similar lines as you, but the one in the chorus that will die trying, I love so much, because that's that willingness, I think like in all my social media bios, I just wrote I try, because I think that's like the least it's the most we can do, actually. And I think, isn't there like Rebecca Solnit told me this, like it's actually what an essayist is, like somebody who writes political stuff for the world, that's the idea, is you try. So I just really gravitated to that. So hearing that in the song with those lyrics, I was like, that's the point. That's the whole entire point, is to try.
It really reminds me of the solo is the thing of a determinant of Guy Debord, and kind of see this in three parts. So the first one being 50 Cent, get rich or die trying. And then Dead Prez, they kind of did a determinant, and they said, get free or die trying. And then Soul is in that vein very much with his music of also the "or will die trying" on the topic
nice
of
connection,
liberation.
Nice weaving. Took what I said kind of like, no grounding, and grounded it. Thank you.
No, well, I didn't even think of it till you brought it up. So yeah, that's the beauty of collaboration. Oh, and you're so nice. You picked our song for the last song, which is "I've Always Loved the Monsters" by me, Jason Hordisky, or Maudlin Magpie, and produced by 1,000 Vows.
Yeah. So I wanted to pick something, on the larger playlist too, I also picked something that just came out from Kinney Star. I just really wanted to bring it current. I've listened to the song more than I'd like to. I'm not going to admit it. Thank you so much for creating it, both of you. It just, it does bring that melancholy joy, because it roots me into like a lot of things. Almost every line, it's something that I've like pondered or thought about, not in the exact same way or not in the same poetic way, but one of the things I'm really trying to figure out is like how to get out of my head and be more present, so that I can just live more of a thriving life. So much of my work was about like creating thriving environments and containers for people, but then I was overworked myself and didn't thrive myself. And there's just, you have that in there. And on the one hand, like the Jason's melody, like, is kind of this counter to it, because it's like this dilemma that I have around like more thought is like takes me away out of presence, but yet thoughts do untangle it all for me. So anyway, I'm not gonna put your lyrics back to you. It feels funny. But
no, thank you. It's an honor that you feel that way. And to just give a little bit of context to this song is I believe I've told you the story, but I had recorded this song, and this song talks about death, like a lot of my songs, which I get made fun of for. I had recorded this song, and it even says one day your heart will be beating, the next it might not beat. And literally the next day, I got in a horrific car accident, almost died, and had internal bleeding and stuff. And then my mind didn't work that well for a while. I had such a severe concussion. And when I kind of came back to and I was able to write again and work on this album, I wanted to redo this verse, the song. And Jason was like, no, you recorded that. It's like, it almost was your last recording. Like, you have to keep it. It's crazy. It's eerie. And maybe he's kind of a macabre person for wanting to keep it like it was, but it was a good idea. But then I found out later that he actually wrote the chorus when I was injured, pretty much. And he said he was kind of talking about how my mind it always like makes a lot of connections and goes places. So I was like, wow, I never knew the chorus had to actually do with me, and that he was worried about me when I was injured. So it kind of ties the song more together.
Wow, that is probably what I like. It just it's so effectual. Like it's kinetic. It's like I feel it in every way. And also, like, I do a lot of work with my ancestral stuff, and you cover it all. Like, yeah, my sight, what is it when you're lying? The sight stills my thoughts still my sight. Oh man. Yeah. Like daily, I apologize to my kids and my partner for that. Right. Like just all of it. Yeah. But thanks for sharing that story. And I'm so glad you survived that accident. Yeah. Yeah. And not to mention the title, because we both love monsters.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was the other thing of, always love the monsters and not always the heroes of the stories. Or what's really strange is this last track that I picked by Subtract featuring Sampha, Trials of the Past, is a song that actually was one of the ways I healed after my car accident. I didn't even think about how these lined up. I never took a day off of teaching after the car accident, which was a really dumb idea because I was throwing up after every lecture. Anytime I used my brain, even if I read a text message, it would make me nauseous. And I was stubborn and took place in this debate I had already said I would go to on fracking, which I was glad I did because the fracking debate was horrible. And I threw up after that too. But this was a song that I would always listen to on the light rail. And it brought me peace and it made me feel free.
I really like this song. How did it help?
Back to that thing where you say, like, it's just there, that vibe of this melancholy joy. For one, it's just the beat. I love this like tube synths and the minors in it. And then Sampha's voice is just so soulful. It's so calming and poetic. But when I would be on the light rail, I'd always try to get to like the front or the back of the car, and I stand up, and then I would like pretend I was flying, and I didn't feel good, because I couldn't really think. So it felt kind of weird too. I felt spacey, so I actually felt like I was flying above the light rail while listening to this over and over again for about a month. And then I love the second verse where he says, I was always floating around the city, going with the flow without ever knowing where I want to be. So I got into crazy situations. A loyal soldier who acts, but never asks. That was my favorite line. And I just love that. And I know you and me, we really resonate about talking about questioning and questions.
I really liked flying on my back with the moon above, looking down. Really, really related to that. I think it had this sense of like, I don't know, astral projection or something in it. Like there's some kind of like, I'm beyond this physical realm. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the joy I think I pulled from it. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of your story about Burial a little bit too, about how you were trying to get the nerve activated going and like that form of dancing. And we had talked about in an email before this on other topics of what music is and music and ableism. And I was telling you about a friend I have who's a non-hearing friend, and they were explaining to me about going to shows and that they enjoy going to shows where they can just feel the bass and the bass in their chest and just the vibes of the energy of a show and all of those things, and just those things to consider when people are talking about music and ableism and all those things that tie in and how music is part of everyone's realities.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. It's really important. And that's the thing, like rhythm. Yeah, even a non-hearing person they can feel it in their body. And I think that's really important because I think I shared that quote. It's Zach's favorite quote, the one about like that sound is, you can't have music without sound, but you can have sound without music. And so therefore sound is more important. But it makes me think about that, just opening up what sound is and how we experience it, and in even like a harmonic way or harmony way. Like that's probably a whole other conversation that I'm probably not the best person to have it with because I don't really understand music, but just even the Western narrow version of what music is versus the East just continues on the white supremacist hegemonic ways of even what constitutes music.
Yeah, like always trying to categorize and break things into binaries that are not necessary. Going back to what you were saying about how you enjoy dance, and that's a way that you're able to express just, the music of that and just the rhythm of movement.
Yeah, even separating that in the West.
Yeah. Oh, I love that bird.
Speaking of music.
And what perfect booking, because that's how we started it, with talking to the birds.
Yes. Nice one. Did you want to say anything about your larger list before we wrap it up? Or
so like the ones that I really picked on my extra was a song that I really grew up listening to, which was Respiration by Black Star. It's talking about the city, and the beat by High Tech is really contemplative, and I love like the poetry of Mos Def in it. I had Prince on there, which we're both big Prince fans. I have a lot of jazz that was on there, like Archie Shepp. I'm a big Tom Waits fan, like you were talking about. So I had stuff from Nighthawks at the Diner, which was, kind of a play into our newest album, Nighthawks at McCoy's. Stevie Wonder, so one of the greatest of all time. I just love everything Stevie does. Going back to the hospital when I worked there, Frankie Beverly and the Maze, a coworker, taught me about them, and the song Joy and Pain ties in so much into this. And then the Priests, I really love the Priests and their music. In Earth, Wind and Fire, one of the members from Earth, Wind and Fire is from Denver too. I'm a big Frank Ocean fan as well. New Wave, so Joy Division, and then I'd probably end up putting New Order or someone else on there if we kept going with this playlist.
Well, I did 13, so you can add a couple more. I'm so excited to share this list. I'm going to start with a couple that were in the that got booted out of the top 7, which is Sun Ra, Blue Soul. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm from another planet most of the time, so I really relate to Sun Ra's stuff and really get lost in it. And then Sinead O'Connor, really, really important. Her and Tracy Chapman, for my political educators. Oh, the song that I kicked off right away was for the one that Zach told me to do, Nature Boy, was This Is For Life from Luca Bloom. I don't know if you know his stuff, but he's Irish. Just an incredible singer-songwriter. And it's really about a song during the Troubles where they a man and woman fall in love, and he gets put in prison because he kills somebody, but they stay together despite it all. And it's all about time and how he can't actually watch the moon because he's in jail. And it's really, really sad, but there's like a beauty about it that they commit to life together. Their love is going to transcend this physical distance. Yeah. So, and Prince, of course, it was really hard to pick a Prince song. I was really wanted to do something from his early stuff, but Purple Rain is the one that just had to be. And then Cure, Oh man, I probably listen to The Cure like 3 times a week because it's a dance. It is melancholy joy to the max. It's like, because it has the beat to dance, but the songs are so sad. Sigur Rós is another. All of it. It's every time I go on a flight, I listen to Sigur Rós. I love it. The Police is like circa, teenager. I just felt completely lonely. It's from their first, or maybe their second. I thought it was from their first album. And then I have a couple jazz stuff on there too. Steal My Joy from Lee Williams. Do you know that song? It's so good.
No.
So it's like about not stealing. It's like Don't Steal My Joy is actually the song.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's really, really beautiful. And then of course, at last I borrowed from a friend who did a playlist about hope, and Rebecca Solnat, actually. She did it, and she had it on there because she's, sometimes we have to wait for it. Sometimes there's patience in the fight, in the build. So I thought it was a good one in terms of ending my playlist. Like sometimes you have to wait a bit.
I love that.
Did I cover them all? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, Walkabout. Real quick. I love Atlas Sound. And I really wanted this song on the film I made about the Purple Thistle, and I went through a lot of networks to get it. But of course, you're in the business. Brendan, he doesn't actually have rights to the song, so I ended up not using it, but yeah.
Oh dang. Yeah, I love your extras on here.
Oh my God, I miss Sauerkraut.
Yeah.
That's my kid. I loved it. It was hard to pick, but I picked the one that resonated the most. He's written a couple songs for me, and I probably should have done one of them, but it had a lot of rain in it. But I picked this one.
Awesome. All right, Carla. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Time Talks podcast, part of the Channel Zero Network. Please check out Carla Bergman's work and support their endeavors. Links to Carla's works are in the show notes. Please send me an email and tell me some songs you listen to when you're feeling blue, or share a playlist with us. My email is timeraps, TIMERAPS, @riseup.net. Thanks to Awareness for the music. Share the show around, rate it up, and give someone some water. Peace.